you guys all again for joining us for another add-on office hours session. My name is Matthew, and we have a few members from the team here today that are going to be helping us through these office hours. Just some quick notes before we get started. We try to keep these office hours to be primarily focused on our add-ons for Quickbase. So if you have any questions on those, we're going to start off with an open forum in the beginning, as we try to always do, so that you can get your questions answered. If you do have questions, please just raise your hand using the Zoom reactions so that we can keep this in an orderly fashion, and we'll keep it about 5 to 7 minutes a question. And just so you know, these meetings are always recorded and are posted onto YouTube after with some timestamps. So if you want to come back and check them out, please feel free to do so. We'll make sure you all get a copy of that. So without further ado, the topic for today, after the questions, is going to be our November release notes for Exact Forms Plus, and we'll have Keith presenting those today. So some very exciting changes, hopefully some stuff that everyone's able to utilize. But before we continue, I do believe we want to make sure everyone gets their questions answered. So I'm going to pause here and stop my share. And if anyone has a question, comment, concern about any of our add-ons, not just Exact Forms Plus, now would be the time. I do see one question in the chat from Dirk, and he asked if it was possible to print PDF attachments on Exact Forms Plus. He currently just sees a link with the information. Now, Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we print to PDF, you have the ability to print from that screen right there, correct?
Yeah, depending upon the browser you're using, they usually, there's always some link to in the upper right, usually to print. So let me just quickly share my screen here.
Right.
All right. You guys see my screen right now?
Yep.
All right. So I mean, if you're generating a document, the windows, there's a couple ways. It depends on how you have the button set up as well. But once the document is open, you usually have a printer icon up here, so you can print it right from there. Or once it's saved in a file attachment field, you can download it, open it, and print it. So there's a couple different options for printing, but I'm not sure if that's the question or if there's something a lot more behind the scenes to that question, Dirk. So if you want to elaborate a little bit more, if I'm not answering it right, please do so.
Right. I don't know if this is what you're asking, but I don't think we have a way to, almost like now with the new stream equals D we're going to show. I don't know if we would be able to ever do something to print automatically.
Yeah, no, it doesn't go directly to your printer. So it will have to open up either in your browser or store it in a file attachment field. Then you have to open the file and then print. Right. So we don't have a version that goes straight to printer, if that's the question.
Yep, that's how I read it. All right, well, thank you for asking a question. We do appreciate it. So again, just want to reiterate, because we had a couple more people join as we were talking. Right now we're in open forum. So if anyone has a question about Exact Forms Plus or any of our add-ons for Quickbase, now would be the time. If not, we're gonna hand it off to Keith to start talking about the November release notes for Exact Forms Plus. For those of you who may be a little bit more introverted, feel free to put a question in the chat, and you can put a question in the chat throughout this entire meeting, and we'll do our best to get back to you.
Just to go back to Dirk's question, though, if it is, can we send it right to a printer? I can look into seeing if that's possible. I'm not. Manal's on the call on our team here. Manal, what do you think?
I think we should be able to do it. We have to look into our options.
Okay, so maybe a future option will be like, we're going to introduce stream equals D today, but maybe we will be able to introduce the stream equals P. So we'll, you know what, Dirk, is a good question. If that's where you were going, I think we'll put that on our list of things to investigate. So thanks for that. Right. I think we have a question from Mike Tamouche.
Yes, patiently waiting with his hands raised.
No problem. Thanks, guys. Just a quick one. I just thought of, this is about the your file reducer and rotator. I know at a certain point you had been kind of looking into and working on, and you actually were able to have me test briefly a one button click that would reduce or rotate all images on a form. Is that something that was ever put into production, into actual release notes, or not? I haven't gone back and looked at all the release notes. I know you've done a lot of work on it.
No, because what we wanted to do was introduce like a batch component. So, trigger it to run and just go off and simulate button clicks if you have multiple images that need to be rotated or reduced. So that never, to be honest, Mike, that didn't make the priority list. So we had a bunch of other things going on, and we don't have a whole lot of people using our image resizer reducer. So we do want to do that, but it just didn't really make it got pushed back to the lower end of our priority list. So
Gotcha. No problem. It's not on my high priority either. I just thought I'd check and make sure I didn't miss it in a release note or anything like that.
no, it's a good question, though, and it kind of reminds us again that we need to maybe revisit that and see where it may land.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for asking. And for those of you wondering, Mike was just asking about our image resizer and rotator add-on, which is a great utility for anyone who has images that may need to be adjusted in Quickbase.
Yeah, most of I think the challenges Mike had were related to uploading images from mobile, the Quickbase mobile device. Is that true, Mike?
Yeah, it was kind of twofold. That I think you guys made some fix. Whoever, I think you had a new programmer in there or whatever, and he fixed it. There was a rotating issue where like he would like reduce and it would show up rotated and all that kind of stuff. So that was all fixed. For me, the issue really derives of we have a lot of forms where when you print them to PDF, people want pictures on them. And so that's where it all comes in. There's nothing on the market that I've seen, your company or anybody else, that you can push a button and actually print to PDF a smaller version. It feels like it might be impossible. You'd have to have something like reducing pictures in real time. I don't know how in the heck you'd do it. I was hoping somebody there figured it out. But the workaround was just to reduce each picture individually and then put them on PDF. But that's where our problem stems from, is we have these reports that we need to print 8 pictures on it, and it makes it a 30 meg report that you can't email. So it's all about trying to do that. If you ever come up with an add-on where I push a button and it reduces them in real time while printing them on the report, I'll pay big money for that.
You know what we do right now, Exact Forms Plus does resize the images, but it doesn't do, let's say, optimization of those images to try to reduce their size, so that when you are including as many as like some of the documents you have include a lot of different images. So that is something on our list to do, is to better handle images. Exact Forms Plus isn't an optimizing utility for images, but we do have a lot more use cases where customers are including images in their documents. So it is on our list of things to make better in Exact Forms Plus. So it does handle images.
Yeah.
And better, yes, it definitely can.
Well, no, it's great. Yeah, no, in general, it's great. We use it all the time. It's just the magic one. I don't think anyone, honestly, it must be real difficult because I've never seen it out there at all existing to do that. So for anyone, but no, it's working great. They're just checking.
Good. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else?
Yep, that's what I was going to ask. Anyone else? Anyone else have any questions? We do want to make sure we ask you guys if you have questions, because that is the primary focus. Seems like everyone's.
You can always jump in after the fact if something comes up, or obviously as I'm going through some of the release notes for November, if there's a question, just drop it in the chat, raise your hand. So we certainly appreciate you joining us. We do have,
Hey,
Don. Hey, Don.
Hey, I came in about 4 minutes late, so I missed the rule on the questions, or if you already did this. I actually have a support ticket in with you right now on Exact Forms Plus, trying to get the subfields from an address field to go to the template. So You know, it'll do the whole field, but you know how Quickbase will make it. It's field 150, but 151, 152, 153, 154. It generates all those when you generate the address field, and it may be a bug on my side. Maybe I'm forgetting to put the tildes on the field name on the Word document, and it's user stupidity. But have you seen that before? Am I the only one who's having this problem with the subfields from address?
No, you're including them in the C list on the template record, correct? Don?
I believe so. I'll go double check that right now. That would be
Yeah,
really bad
Yeah,
if I
because
didn't do that.
the only other thing that we've
That would
seen
do it.
is if you have multiple address fields, and you're using both of them in the exact fonts plus document. Let's say you have a ship to and a bill to, and they're both full address fields, and you want to include them both in there. If you ever looked at the address fields, Quickbase breaks them down: street 1, I forget exactly what it's, street 1, street 2, city, postal code, state, but they don't change those field names relative to how you name the field. Let's say billing address. Street 1 is the same for billing address, and street 1 is also used in shipping address. So that causes issues in, you might get a duplicate index error that comes across because you're trying to use two address fields that actually are named the same, and that sometimes becomes an issue. So we can take it, we can take this one offline. We'll check on that support ticket and we'll take a look to see if that's the issue.
And for the record, I just looked. They're in the C list, so I didn't
Okay,
make
good.
that dumb of a mistake because I get how that would do it.
Now, are you getting it? Are you
That was
getting
the
a duplicate key? Are you getting a duplicate key error or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not seeing any error message. It's just coming through as blank.
Oh,
Not
okay.
filling anything.
All right.
So,
All right. So
but
I
I
mean,
again, I got to take in. I got a test record for you. I was
Okay,
hoping
cool.
to, since I'm here anyway.
No,
But,
no problem.
please move on.
No, that's good. Well, no, we'll after we're off this call, we'll take care of that. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through the release notes, and we actually got some good feedback from last Exact Fonts Plus release notes, and we had some things in the hopper that we wanted to release, and we had a couple new requests that came through that we wanted to try to get in as quickly as possible. They weren't major changes, so we thought we can kind of get them in as quickly as we could, and we're happy to say that we'll be releasing this probably within the next 2 or 3 days. I would think by Friday we should have everybody up on this latest version, but we wanted to kind of take advantage of our office hours and show you what those changes for Exact Fonts Plus are going to be, and we're going to slowly roll them out over the next couple of days, but everybody should be upgraded by Friday. So there were a few new URL parameters. So whenever you have an Exact Fonts Plus field or button, which is a formula URL or a rich text field, there's a bunch of parameters. So we introduced a couple new ones, as well as we modified a couple existing ones. So the first one we're going to talk about is stream equals D. So when you're using I'm going to just pull up a field here. When you're using the UA version, what we call unattended mode, meaning preview it back to the browser, the existing options were always stream equals D. I'm sorry, was stream equals yes means bring it to the browser, and it was stream equals no, which means just create the document and don't bring it back to the browser. So I don't want to see it, in other words. What we just did now is we introduced a new parameter or a new value that's really called stream equals D, which is download it. So right now, again, stream equals Y will open it up into the browser. So let me show you what that means. Again, just to refresh everyone's memory. When we click on this button, it opens up the window and it's going to bring the document right back into the browser. So that's stream equals Y. Okay, stream equals D is going to do very, very similar, except instead of opening it up in the browser, it's going to drop it down to the browser tray. So there you go. So instead, again, stream equals Y opened it up in the browser so you can see it. Stream equals D dropped it right to the browser's download. So it's downloaded on my PC. So I dropped it right to whatever folder your browser is, handles your downloads to. So it dropped it right to my download. So I can click it and open it. one of the reasons why we introduced this is because we had a lot of customers. I'm kind of simulating what they were doing, but they had a bunch of documents that they needed to create in succession. So what they were doing was they had, let's say, these buttons. They would right click and open a new tab, then right click, open a new tab, and right click, open a new tab, because they needed to create 4 or 5 documents in succession very quickly. And it would always open them up in a browser. So one of our customers said, well, I want this use case, but instead of opening them up in a browser, can you just download them for me automatically so that I can just open them and print them myself? So that's really the main driver behind stream equals D. Stream equals N, again, I can change that quickly. What it'll do is it'll create the document, but it's not going to do anything but store it in the file attachment field. So if you did have a stream equals N, it's not going to open it, and it's not going to download it. But what it will do is it'll store it in the file attachment field. And it kind of does give you a little message that one document was created, I think. I haven't done stream equals no in a while, but yeah, it just gives you this message saying, hey, one document was created. So not too many people use that. So again, stream equals Y and stream equals D are probably going to be the most used versions or values for stream. But that's really the main focus of this stream. So again, it reads stream equals download. That's what that really means. And the valid values again, yes, no, and download. Next parameter we added was called upmap. And also, while we're doing updates, we're also introducing UID, meaning updated user ID field. So really, I'm going to do these together because I have the button set up to do both of them. But what that means is, in the old way, when people wanted to update data fields and create a document, because they wanted to log the user who clicked the button, or they wanted to maybe even update another field or so. So you see a lot of people would take our button that we created for them and add some API call ahead of it. So basically they're saying, the first thing I want to do before we run Exact Forms Plus is I want to issue an API edit record call, and I want to set the value of field 66 to be the word completed. I want to set 89 to be the user to email, and 94 to be user to name. And then it would redirect and generate our document. So instead of having to do all of that, and also if your application was using app tokens, you'd have to include the application token. So we see this being used a lot. So we wanted to see if there was something we can do inside of Exact Forms Plus so that you don't have to do that, because a lot of people get a little scared coming in here and messing around with the formulas. So what we did was we introduced some new fields called upmap, as well as UID. So I just want to show you what that, when I click this button with those parameters ahead of it, what it's doing is it's updating the record first, and then it's going to redirect to Exact Forms Plus to generate the document. And then when we close the document and we refresh the screen, we'll see that those fields were updated. So it was set to complete, the user was set, and so on. So instead of having to do it that way, what we did in Exact Forms Plus is we introduced these new URL parameters. So upmap will allow you to do that field mapping, meaning saying, I want to set the value in field 61 to be equal to the value of field 33. And then I delimit it with a pipe because I want to do another field mapping. So I want to set the field ID 62 to be equal to the value in field 27. I want to set the value in 33 to be equal to 64. You can't use UID, you can't update a user field in this scenario because when we actually execute Exact Forms Plus, we run with a user token, and that user token equates to a user. So if we try to do the update inside of this scenario, we're running as the user of the user token, so it's not going to work properly. So what we need to do is we need to derive the value of the user ahead of time before Exact Forms Plus runs. So that's why we have a separate parameter here. So in this one, we're saying actually set the field 60 to be equal to the user to email. So we're taking the user who's running it, who's actually clicking the button, converting their user ID into an email address, and then we're setting field 60 to be that. Now, field 60 is an actual user field, and I'm going to show you that. So basically, when I click this button, it's going to do a couple of updates. And it's also going to set the user field equal to the person who clicked the button. So if you notice, I don't have to have up here all of these, an API edit record and a redirect to Exact Forms Plus. I'm setting them with new URL parameters. So I'm just going to come to this button. And basically what I'm doing is I have it here again. I'm doing a couple of updates and I'm doing a user update. And really what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the value of this field to be equal to the estimate number. I'm going to set the value of the status field to be equal to this text field I have here, EFP created. I'm going to set the value of this user field equal to the person who clicked the button. So when I click this button, it's going to do those three things. So, and again, it's because it's using both the UP map and the UID. The UID is going to handle this because it's going to set the user to email equal to and again, this is a user field, so you can see here, it's a user. And the UP map field, it's going to update again this field here because I want to log the status of this record at the time of document creation. That's kind of the use case here. So since the status is pending, I want to set this field here so I know what the status was when the document was generated. But then at the end, when Exact Forms Plus is done, I want to set the status field to be EFP is done. So I want it to be set to EFP created. And I also want to set an invoice number because now I want to invoice this. So that's kind of what's happening, going to happen here. So when I click the button, it's going to generate the document, which it always does. But when we come back out and we look at this screen again here, you can see that the user was set to me, who I'm signed in as, and if you look up in the upper right, that's who I'm signed in as. It set the status at the time the document was created was pending, because you saw when I first went up here, this was pending. It updated this now to be EFP created, and it also updated the invoice number to be 1004, so it set it back to be the estimate number.
Keith, real fast, if you don't mind me interrupting you. We do, never mind, Mike's question's been answered, but we do also have Carlos with a question, which is, do the fields have to be set values of other fields, or can you set it to a specific value? For example, set a checkbox to be true or a text field to value complete.
Yeah, right now, first iteration of this is it has to be another value, but it has to be another field. So that, like in this case, I had created a text field to set EFP created. Instead of hard coding that inside of the field mapping, I set it equal to a field value. So the mappings have to be field ID to field ID. We're thinking about how we might be able to open that up where we can set make these dynamic, but right now it's field ID. So this field ID should be equal to this one. That's what it's trying to say. This field ID equal to this one. So you can't dynamically set a value here. Let's say you want this to be complete. We can't do that just yet. We are looking at how we might be able to handle that. It just gets a little crazy with text and special characters and so on. So right now, the first iteration of this is going to be that you have to include a field ID and map a field ID to a field ID.
And then Mike, as a follow-up, asked, is the value set before Exact Forms Plus is created, or can you use the change field once EFP is being created? I think that's, I'm reading that right. It is in the chat.
Once the record is saved, because we run on our own servers, we have to go get the record again. So if the record is saved ahead of time, then we'll grab the most updated version of that field value. So if you did the API edit record ahead of time, then that's the value we're going to pick up. So if you did want to do both, if you wanted to do an API edit record and then also do a field mapping, that would work, because we would pick up the value that you edited. If you wanted to combine them both, mean do API edit record, redirect to Exact Forms Plus, and then use the update field mapping, it would work. That answer that, Mike? All right. I'm going to move on here. So what the other thing what we did is we also introduced that into our repository code. So right now we already had RP mapping, so you could create a document and store it in another table. So in this case, I have a record here where when I generate this document, instead of saving it into the file attachment field, I want to save it into my document repository table. So let me just, I think I was working with number 4. Okay, this one. So I have this button here that's set up right now to generate my document, but also save it in a repository table, which would be my document repository table. I'm going to connect it back to the estimate record. I'm going to update the file attachment field with the document that was just created. I'm going to do a field mapping, meaning I'm going to take a value of field 33 in my estimate table and set it equal to the set field 12 in my repository table equal to field 33 in my estimate table, and also set the user ID equal to the person who clicked the button. So there's a user ID field in the repository table, and I want to set the user to be equal to the person who clicked the button. So if we come in here, when I generate the document, when I click this button to generate the document, it's going to add another record in here, and it's going to set those values. So I'm going to click my repository button. It generates a document. It will have added a third record into this table. As you can see, it set the status field equal to what the status was here. EFP created. It also set the user field, which was field ID 8, equal to the person who signed in, who clicked the button. So that's so the new change for repository is that we allow you to set the user value. You were always able to set the field to a value. It's like RP map existed already, but RP UID never existed. So since we were doing it for the master table, we figured we would add that into our repository table processing as well. So those were the main changes that we're introducing. And there's one other thing, that's right. There was a bug that I forget who pointed it out, but when you're in Exact Forms Plus and you're in the configurator, just going to go to my subtable. I think it was this one here. Okay, so if I'm editing an existing subtable record configuration, and I have a bunch of fields selected, and if I had an HTML field or an image field or any rich text field, when I went into advanced settings and I wanted to set the vertical alignment to be top, middle, or bottom, those settings weren't holding. So really what I wanted to do is when it was in the cell, I wanted to be able to control whether it landed in the top or the middle or the bottom of that cell, and that wasn't holding for certain types of fields. And it was mainly for checkboxes weren't coming out. They were always going to the top. Images were always going to the top. Let me see if I have a good example of that one on my estimates here. I think I could probably do this one. Okay, so this was really the desired result when there was there was some big gaps in here. And see how this checkbox is now centered, so it's vertically centered as well as the image. In the past, this was always up at the top. This was always up at the top. So now if you do set top, middle, or bottom, these fields, images, formula rich text fields, and as well as checkboxes will now hold that setting. So that was the bug fix that we're just going to be putting in as well. So that finishes up the changes that are going to go in the next release. Again, it's within the next couple of days. Everybody should be upgraded by Friday. We just have some cleanup to do, and we also want to update our help site to match all of these parameters that we just added. We're in the process of doing that. But again, we wanted to release this today during our office hours so that we can answer any questions that might be had, and also let you guys know some of the new things that we're working on. Questions about what I just presented? Questions
Hey, Keith,
about anything?
with those update parameters, you can have like courier or exact forms plus batch or any of our batch add-ons be triggered based off of one of those field changes, correct?
Sure. In the past, a lot of times people would just use the EFP date. So trigger something to happen when EFP date is updated. You don't, if you're not updating the EFP date and you want to update another value, you can certainly update another value, and then you can kick off a pipeline. You can kick off a batch processor to run like Courier. You can kick off our DocuSign batch processor run to send a document out for signature. So yeah, you can now add those fields as part of your automation processing or workflow.
Right. All right. It's almost like a one step pipeline almost.
Mhm.
Pretty cool stuff. So as Keith mentioned, any questions about exact forms plus, it doesn't have to be advanced level questions. I do see, I have some of my clients in here who may have some lower level questions. It can be questions throughout the whole spectrum. So if there's anything that you need assistance with, this is your time. And we have about 30 minutes left in the allotted time. That doesn't mean we need to go the whole time, but we're here to answer your questions. And again, if you prefer, you could just put it into the chat. As you saw, a few people were asking questions in the chat. And for those of you who did ask questions, thank you. So Keith, we got from Carlos that he wanted to touch back on the document repository. Maybe we can look at repository as a whole. I'm not sure if.
Yeah, we actually have we do go through that in our demo app. So on our demo app, if you pulled up any one of those records, we have a tab for repository. And there's a bunch of different options for repository. So, and what that really means is I'm on a projects table. I want to click this button and generate a document, but instead of storing it on the projects table, I want to store it in my documents table. So I have a supporting documents table here. So in this case, I just want to add it, meaning I just want to add a new document into the supporting documents and connect it back to my project. But you might also want to update it. So if you said, and this shows some of the parameters here. So RP mode equals U will allow you to update an existing record to attach that document or update that file attachment field in an existing document. That's another option for you. And so if you don't want to use RP mode equals add, meaning every time that we see this add, we're going to add a new document. But if you don't want to do that because you don't want to have you want to update a document instead. So in this case, I have 35 document records in here. So when I click this document button, I should see a 36th one in there because I'm always adding. But you might not want that workflow. You might want to generate that document, but you don't want an extra one in there. You want to update an existing one. So when I click on that and I refresh and I go back to my repository, again, I have 36. But in this case, instead of adding a new record in there, if I use RP mode equals U, and I'm going to update the same document record because I know that it's connected through the project ID from this value here, it's going to update that same file attachment field. When I click on the update mode, it's going to update that same record we just created. So we shouldn't see a 36. We shouldn't see 37. We should see 36, which we do. And it actually updated. I did it so fast that we're not a minute or two ahead, but normally that would show a different date, seconds there. But there's a more advanced too, is you can update a specific record. So we have a couple other URL parameters that say, I want to update a specific record in the documents table and update the file attachment field on that. And you can also add documents to a repository. Like in this case, if I want to add them to Amazon S3 as opposed to a file attachment field, I can set different parameters in the URL field to save that to Amazon S3 and then create the download link for the document. So that's like what repository can do. What we introduced here is a mapping that allows you to set a field in here. I don't have it in this demo. Oh, actually, the URP user field is here. I don't know if I have the button set up to that. Let's see if I have the UID. Do that quickly. Never type out anything anymore. I always cheat. So if I wanted to set this one. So really what I'm doing is I'm setting the UI, the user ID, which I also now I need to make sure I get the right field value. So let's just make sure we get that. So the user field is field 15. So I'm going to set that to be 15. So I want to set field 15 equal to the person who clicked the button or the user to email of the person who clicked the button. So this is set up to do add mode. So we should see a new document get in there. Pretty sure it's set up to add mode. Yes, see, boom. So now the user ID is set. So that's really what we introduced, because repository mode always existed, but we just added the ability to set the user who clicked the button to a user field in the repository. Hope that answered your question.
We got two more coming up, Keith, as Justin was moderating the chat there. Don asked if we could refresh his memory on test mode. What I was going to send him, but I wanted to wait before we did it, was just the parameters. But it was right there. I see it's line 17 has it.
Yeah.
But I'll let you go into that a little bit.
Yeah, so test mode, basically what it does is if you set it to be test mode equals yes, a couple things happen. We're going to create a document and we're going to create a watermark on it. We're not going to allow you to create a Word document. We're always going to create a PDF. It doesn't count towards your usage. So you can see that now we watermark that document. So hopefully you're not going to actually use that document in live production mode. But we really introduced that so that you can test formatting and so on, and not have it count towards your usage parameters, because you get a certain number of documents per month per year. So if you wanted to just do some alignment testing and subtable testing, that's the whole purpose of test equals test mode. So test equals Y will do this. It doesn't save it back to Quickbase, so it's not going to save it into a file task field. We basically ignore all of the updating of Quickbase. If you had repository mode turned on, it's not going to save it in a repository table. It basically kind of blanks everything out and says, okay, I'm going to create a PDF document, even if you're trying to create a Word document. I'm going to put a watermark on it. I'm not going to count it towards your usage, but I'm basically doing this to allow you to help with formatting of your document while you do in test mode.
Thanks. And then Mike, patiently waiting.
And no problem. I just want to make sure I understand correctly three of your kind of, I guess, add-ons or abilities that are similar but different. So here's how I understand it. Just let me know if I've got this right for best use case. You have the add files that you can add to EFP, and that would be if I'm want to create a document from my form, but at the same time want to append some already created files in some forms, as opposed to the batch, which is creating at the same time numerous EFPs in a table, which is different than merge, which would merge already created EFPs. Do I have those three things correct?
I think you had two of them, yes. I think the third one we could talk a little bit more about. But the first one is, in this example here, I already have an existing PDF that I want to attach to the document I create. So I'm going to create a project document, and then I have this credit card authorization form that I want to, it's a static document. I just want to drop at the end of the document. So that's by just clicking this button, it's going to generate my normal project task document. But at the end, it's going to include that credit card authorization form. So that's the first thing that you talked about.
Yeah.
In batch mode, what it'll do is it'll basically do that for every record in the projects table.
Gotcha.
It's gonna simulate the same thing. It's gonna simulate this button click, but it's gonna, you can pass it, or you can say, all right, I want all projects that are in status mode approved to generate all those documents. That's that's what your batch will do, so that you don't have to go into each project record and click to generate.
Click, click, click. Yeah, okay.
So the last one in merge, what it'll do is, if you were creating a batch, like I just talked about,
Yeah.
and I say I ended up creating 5 project documents and merged them all into one.
Mhm,
And then I wanted to take this document and append it to the end of that.
mhm.
That would be the merge files. So, so merging, there's a couple different ways to do merging. So if I go to my document generation and I went into here, when I generate all of those project documents, they get
Mhm.
stored here.
Yeah.
But I also have this other additional file to merge. So what happens is it'll generate all those documents on the projects table, merge them into one, and
Mhm.
then it'll take this one and also append it to the end. So
Gotcha.
instead of
Okay.
appending this one to each individual generated project,
Oh, okay, okay.
it just takes that single file and says, hey, I'm going to throw this all the way at the end. And this was probably previously created. So let's just see here what this does. Yeah, so it's basically just taking this one document and putting it at the end of 2 project or 3 project documents. So if I took a look at that, this was just let's say a cell sheet. So I wanted that to be appended to all of my project documents. Instead of it to be each individual one, I just wanted one document right at the end of that merge document.
So if a PDF was created in 10 different records in a table or something like that, and in hindsight, I wanted to come in and take those 10 PDFs and merge them together, does merge do that, or do any of the 3
Our
things
other
do
add-on-
that or not?
Yeah, we have another add-on that will do that called PDF Merger. So PDF
Oh,
Merger
okay.
is separate from Exact Forms Plus. So Exact Forms Plus has a couple of merging capabilities.
Gotcha.
PDF Merger is way more advanced because one thing about it, merging documents into Exact Forms Plus, they have to already be PDFs.
Hmm.
So if you had a doc here, or if this was a DOC, or if it was an image or a JPEG or an Excel file,
Yeah.
or something else, PDF Merger can handle that, but Exact Forms Plus can't.
Gotcha. So there's a variable of merge in Exact Form Plus that can do something.
Yes.
There's also the extra add-on for PDF Merger with all the extra
And
abilities.
PDF Merger can take a bunch of different varying file types,
Uh-huh.
converts them into PDFs,
Okay.
and merges them together. And they can also live in another table. So our PDF Merger can handle a lot more advanced capabilities than Exact Forms Plus can. But Exact Forms Plus does do a fair amount of merging.
Merging, gotcha.
So if you went to, we have a demo for PDF Merger that kind of lists out how it does all of those different types of things.
And then each time a record is PDF, that's one tally or one tick against your quantity, right? So if I use batch and there's 10 records, that's 10. And then if I use merge to put that one other piece of PDF in, that's one more. So that'd be 11 total uses.
Not an Exact Forms Plus. So Exact Forms
Okay.
Plus, we're creating when we create these, if I go into the batch generation, if I created 5, when I click this button,
Yeah.
if I created 2 documents,
Uh-huh.
that
So it's
even if I merged it into here, it's still 2 documents.
Oh, that final step doesn't count. It's the 2 that you
Right. This merging process, that's part of it. So we don't count.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
Now that explains it all. Thank you.
Good question.
And Keith, what's the current size limit on a PDF merger?
Well, if you're saving to Quickbase, meaning using file attachment fields, you probably got about 75 meg, give or take. Sometimes Quickbase will stop you at 72 meg. I don't know why, but sometimes it does. But it's usually anywhere between 70 and 75 meg. We can also save to Amazon S3 and Dropbox, so we don't have a limit at that point. A reasonable limit. So if you wanted to save bigger files that can't be supported by Quickbase file attachment fields, don't worry about it. You can use our PDF Merger. We have customers that create some pretty large documents merged together, and we store it in Amazon S3 for them or in Dropbox.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think your file attachment, or where you can drag and drop a bunch of files in. That has used to at least have a 20 meg limit. Do you know if that's still the case?
It was per file.
Per
Manal,
file.
is that still the same, Manal?
I think we increased for S3 multi-file, and we're working towards increasing it to, I think,
File attachment.
file
multi-file?
attachment
Right.
multi-file. I have to check.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so we
We are
think that the
upgrading
file
currently that.
attachment,
Yes.
it's still 20 meg per file. So if you were uploading
Okay.
5 files, each one has to be under 20 meg.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
In the words of Manal, PDF merger is an underdog.
Yes, yeah, it's a sleeper add-on. We again, because you can convert a lot of different file types to a PDF. And you can grab data from multiple tables and pull them together. It basically helps building packages. So when you have a package of documents like an HR package, you can merge a bunch of documents that were previously created with Exact Forms Plus together into a single one.
Right. And recently I've had a couple of people working with us that are, making variable proposal packages. So, things like that is where PDF merger can be pretty powerful. But we have about 12 minutes, 13 minutes left. We've got some great questions, and I think this is some great information on Exact Forms Plus to go a little bit deeper. Does anyone else have any questions? Exact Forms Plus, PDF merger, any of our add-ons?
This master demo app is a great resource too to quickly get into some of these demo applications that we have for all of our add-ons. You can get to it from any demo app, and you can also get to it from our Juiced website. So if you scroll, I think it's all the way down, right, Justin? Yep, there we go. So if you went to our homepage and you came here, it'll take you right there. And Justin put a link in the chat as well.
And Keith, one of the other questions we had was just the formula URL parameters from EFP, the help site. This page, yep. So Carlos, I believe you asked this. This is the page that's going to have all the parameters, and we frequently update this, so the additional options will be added. So, definitely a great resource to check out here.
Mm-hmm.
And these would just be added to your web-based buttons if needed.
Yeah, so most of these aren't required. There are a handful that are required, but as you can see, we always had RP map. So we have to add RP UID to this one, and we also have to use the UP map and UID parameters. So we'll be adding that information here. But this was a relatively new parameter fill out, so we had just added that to create fillable PDFs from Exact Forms Plus.
So we got about 10 minutes left. It seems like everyone's got their questions out. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Keith and Justin, we're going to skip next week because of Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So we will be, taking a week off for the holiday, and we'll be coming back the following week. I believe that's going to end up being November 30th. So we appreciate everyone's support, and for those of you who've been attending since the beginning, we're going to continue doing these through the new year. We feel these were successful and a great resource for a lot of people, and we hope you feel the same way. As Keith's showing right now, all of these office hour sessions have been recorded and are live on our help site. Justin was so prompt, he's already got the release notes ready for up there. But thank you again for attending. If you have questions, last call. If not, I think we're going to wrap up, and we will see you November 30th. All right.
Okay, everybody, enjoy Thanksgiving.
Yep. Thank you.